"You're just not exciting," she said, mid-bite, like she was commenting on the weather. Like those words weren't about to split my chest wide open. We were sitting in the same booth where I proposed to her 5 years earlier. Our spot, as she once called it, with the worn red leather seats and the chalkboard menus that always made her smile. I'd just spent the day driving 3 hours to surprise her after her yoga retreat, armed with her favorite Thai takeout and a bouquet of wildflowers. She didn't look up from her phone when I slid into the seat. Now she was poking at the pad thai like it owed her money. And then came the words, "Not exciting." I didn't respond at first. Just looked at her, really looked. Her hair pulled back in that effortless way she always knew I liked. Her lips stained with wine. Her phone still lighting up with notifications from people who clearly mattered more than I did. Exciting. I used to be exciting. When we met, I was the guy who drove across the state in a thunderstorm just to catch her art exhibit. The one who surprised her with tickets to Iceland because she said she always wanted to see the northern lights. I was the man who believed in her when she didn't believe in herself. Now, I was a bookmark in her life, holding her place while she flipped through other pages. That night, I didn't argue, didn't ask for an explanation. I just smiled, kissed her on the forehead, and said I'd be home late. I wasn't. I spent the night in my truck, parked at a rest stop on the edge of the highway, the engine off, my hands gripping the wheel like I was holding on to what was left of my dignity. I stared out at the dark road, headlights bleeding into the fog, and thought about all the things I gave up to make this life with her. The job offers I turned down, the nights I stayed in so she wouldn't feel alone, the way I started softening, shrinking myself, because she said I took up too much space. When did I become the boring one? The next morning, I drove straight to my buddy Marcus's place. He didn't ask questions, just handed me a coffee and let me sit in silence until I was ready. Marcus had a way of reading between the lines. He knew something broke. Later that week, she posted a photo. Sunset. Wine glass. Caption. Sometimes peace means letting go. She didn't tag me. She didn't need to. The comments were filled with fire emojis and "you deserve better" replies from people who didn't know I'd been the one cleaning her messes for years. Who didn't see the nights I held her when she sobbed about feeling like a failure, or the mornings I packed her lunches so she wouldn't forget to eat. I was the scaffolding. She was the art. And apparently, art needs excitement. 2 weeks later, I was standing in line at the grocery store when I saw her sister, Clara. We hadn't spoken much over the years, just the occasional holiday meal or birthday dinner. But she smiled at me in a way I wasn't used to anymore. Like I wasn't invisible. "You look like you could use a drink," she said, tossing a bottle of rose into her basket. I laughed, the first real laugh in weeks. You have no idea. We ended up getting drinks that night. What started as two ex-in-laws commiserating over awkward family ties turned into a 3-hour conversation about everything from childhood regrets to the best road trip songs. She was funny, sharper than I remembered, real. Somewhere between our second round and a shared plate of fries, she said it. "You know what your problem is?" I braced for it. The same line I'd been hearing, directly and indirectly, for months now. You keep trying to be what she needed instead of being who you are. That one hit. I stared at her, speechless, as she dipped a fry into ketchup and added, "If she wanted fireworks, maybe she should have dated a pyrotechnician. You're the guy who shows up. That's rare." She didn't say it to flirt. She said it like a fact, like something she'd been waiting to say for a long time. That night, as I drove home, her words stuck with me. So did the way her eyes didn't flinch when they met mine. Like she saw me, even the pieces I'd buried. A week later, Clara texted, "Ever been to Vegas?" I stared at the screen. "Not since college." I typed, "Why?" Her response came a minute later, "Because I booked us a trip. Pack a bag. You need to remember who you were before she made you small." We landed on a Friday. Vegas greeted us with its usual neon chaos, screaming billboards, slot machines wailing like drunk banshees, the scent of cigarette smoke and stale hope. Clara had booked us a room at the Cosmopolitan, with a view of the Strip and a bathtub big enough to swim in. We weren't here to sleep. Clara, in a sparkly black dress that turned heads from the moment she stepped off the elevator, looked at me as we walked into the first bar and said, "Let's give them something to talk about." And we did. We danced. We drank. We laughed like we had nothing left to lose. And for the first time in months, I felt weightless. I didn't think about her. Not once. Because Clara didn't make me feel like I needed to prove anything. She just let me be. And somewhere between the rooftop champagne toast and the impromptu karaoke at 3 a.m., I realized this trip wasn't about revenge. Not yet. It was about resurrection. But the revenge? That came the next morning. And it came fast. We woke up to sunlight pouring through the floor-to-ceiling windows, our heads pounding, and the scent of overpriced minibar vodka still lingering in the air. Clara was sprawled across the bed, one arm flung over her eyes, groaning. I was on the couch, cradling a black coffee like it was the only thing tethering me to reality. She cracked one eye open. So, last night was something. I smiled. You remember the karaoke? God, I wish I didn't. We both laughed, and for a brief moment, it felt like time had snapped in half, before and after. Before her, the woman I married. After her, the woman across from me who actually seemed to like the man I was when I wasn't apologizing for existing. It was Clara's idea to hit the spa. We looked like we crawled out of a casino basement, she said, which wasn't entirely inaccurate. By noon, we were sipping cucumber water in plush robes, getting massaged by people who probably had more secrets than we did. Clara looked over at me through the steam and said, casually, "Did you know she thinks you're dating someone?" I blinked. What? She called me last night, Clara said. Drunk. Slurring. Told me she knows you've moved on. Said you're trying to make her jealous. I tilted my head. And what did you say? Clara grinned. I said maybe he is. Wouldn't blame him. Then I hung up. That laugh again. That lightness. I should have seen what was coming then, but I didn't. That afternoon, we were sitting poolside when a notification popped up on Clara's phone. Her smirk disappeared. What is it? I asked. She hesitated, then turned the screen toward me. It was a message from her. My wife. The woman who hadn't so much as texted me a birthday wish this year. Tell him I hope he's enjoying the circus. Must feel great being someone's rebound. I read it twice, then handed the phone back and stood up. Let's go, I said. Where? Somewhere loud. I need to remember what excitement really looks like. Clara didn't argue. We ended up at a blackjack table at Caesar's. Clara was electric. The way she laughed, tossed chips like she'd done it 100 times. People watched her. Men noticed her. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel threatened by that. I felt proud just being next to her. After a few rounds, she leaned over and whispered, "She always said you played it too safe. Think it's time to prove her wrong?" I looked at her, half smiling. What did you have in mind? She tapped her phone. You remember that bachelorette party we passed in the lobby? Yeah. They recognized me. From Instagram. They invited us out tonight. I said yes. I raised an eyebrow. You always this spontaneous? She winked. You always this agreeable? Later that night, Clara and I were dancing with a group of strangers who felt more real than the people we'd spent the last decade pretending for. The club pulsed with light and sound. The bass made the floor feel like it might crack open. At one point, Clara pulled me aside, breathless and glowing. You're different here, she said. How? She didn't hesitate. You're alive. It hit me like a sucker punch. Maybe it was the alcohol. Maybe it was the freedom. Or maybe it was the way she looked at me like I wasn't just someone's leftovers. Whatever it was, I leaned in and kissed her. Not out of impulse. Out of something deeper. Something buried under years of being told I was enough, but never treated like it. She didn't pull away. And for one suspended second, I didn't care what lines were crossed. I wasn't married anymore. I wasn't broken. I was just a man rediscovering what it felt like to be wanted. The next morning, I woke up to a dozen missed calls from an unknown number. Voicemails. Some quiet. Some tearful. One where she whispered, I miss you. Clara was already dressed, sipping coffee on the balcony. I stepped out and handed her the phone. She's trying to get to me. Clara looked up at me. Are you going to let her? I shook my head. No, but I am going to show her something she'll never forget. Clara set the coffee down. What do you mean? I looked out at the strip, blinding, brilliant, unapologetically chaotic. I mean, I'm going to send her a picture. A picture of what? I turned to her, calm. Certain. A picture of what excitement really looks like. And that's exactly what I did. Me and Clara, arms wrapped around each other, laughing, eyes closed. That rooftop glow behind us, the kind of image people stare at for hours wondering what happiness must feel like. I sent it to her with no caption. Let her fill in the blanks. And the best part? She did. It took less than an hour. One photo. No words. Just me and Clara, barefoot on the hotel balcony, wrapped in each other like we'd been that way our whole lives. The kind of photo that doesn't just tell a story, it dares the person looking to wonder what chapter they missed. Her reply came in the form of a phone call I didn't answer. Then another. Then 5 more. By the time we were packing to check out, I had 20 unread messages. The first few were vague. Curious. So you and Clara? You're really doing this? Then they turned sharp. Is this some kind of payback? I always knew you were weak, but this? And finally, they cracked open. I made a mistake. Please, can we talk? You can't just throw everything away over one comment. One comment. Isn't it always just one comment? Until it unravels everything? Clara sat on the edge of the bed, watching me scroll through the texts, her expression unreadable. She didn't ask what I was going to do. Instead, she said, you know, she used to talk about you like you were her anchor, like you kept her grounded. I looked up, and then I became dead weight. Clara nodded slowly. Yeah, she wasn't saying it to hurt me. That's what made it sting even more. We flew home that afternoon. Barely spoke during the flight, not because anything was wrong, but because something had shifted. Vegas hadn't just been a getaway. It had been a goodbye. To the man I'd been. To the marriage that bled me dry. To her. I didn't respond to the texts. Not until the next day, when a knock on my apartment door revealed the very last person I expected to see. Her. She looked different. Not disheveled, just deflated. Like someone who'd built her house of cards with perfect posture and now couldn't find the strength to pick them up. I had to see you, she said. I stood in the doorway. You've seen me. Her eyes flicked past me, scanning for signs of Clara. There were none. She stepped forward. I wasn't trying to hurt you. I didn't think you'd ever leave. That line, I didn't think you'd ever leave. That's the part they never say out loud until it's too late. I let her talk. About how things had changed. About how maybe she was going through something. About how maybe I'd withdrawn, too. I didn't deny it. I wasn't perfect. I could be distant. I buried myself in work sometimes. I let her complaints pile up because I thought love meant endurance, not attention. But I never stopped showing up. And the truth is, she stopped noticing long before she stopped caring. She reached for my hand, but I didn't take it. I saw the photo, she said softly. You and Clara? I nodded. Wasn't staged. I know. Her voice cracked. She was crying now, but it didn't hit me like I thought it would. I didn't feel vindicated. I didn't feel power. Just peace. You wanted excitement, I said quietly. I gave everything I had to keep us steady, and you mistook that for stillness. She wiped her eyes. Do you love her? I shook my head. I don't know, but I like who I am when I'm with her. That counts for something. She stepped back, nodding slowly like she already knew. I guess I never thought you'd be the one to change. That's the thing, I said. I didn't. You just stopped looking. 3 months later, I was back in Vegas. Not with Clara. Not for revenge. Just me. I walked the strip alone, remembering how the city pulsed the night I started breathing again. I thought of Clara, how she showed up exactly when I needed someone to remind me I wasn't broken, just buried. We talked sometimes. Not often. Enough to know there was no bad blood, only gratitude. What we shared wasn't meant to last forever, but it was exactly what I needed to remember who I was. As for my ex, last I heard, she was dating some guy who sold vintage motorcycles and skydived on weekends. Good for her. Maybe he's exciting. Or maybe he's just loud enough to drown out the silence she never learned to sit with. Me? I'm good. Better than good. Not because I won. Not because I got revenge. But because I left. Because I rebuilt. Because I let go of someone who never knew how to hold me without checking the weight. And if she ever scrolls past that photo again, the one of me and Clara laughing under neon skies, I hope she realizes. That wasn't about proving her wrong. It was about finally seeing myself right. And showing her the one thing she'll never see again. The man who stayed.